that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pirate Radio. Those of you who didn't get to see our beloved president drop the F-bomb to a reporter on his way to, Marine One. There it was. Hopefully that came through well. I can't get enough of that video. I don't know that I've ever actually heard a president drop the F-bomb, and I don't know that I've actually ever seen Donald Trump that angry. That was like dad angry, which is pretty hilarious. I think it kind of goes to show where he's at with current state of certain things in the world. But hope everyone's having a good week thus far. I was slightly under the weather earlier this week, although I didn't miss any work, as I'm not a pussy, and this is America and you have to go to work. May or may not have had the Kung flu in its newest version, so if I sound a little weird, that's kind of why. But we're here, you're here, hopefully you're here. It's okay if you're queer. Doesn't bother me a bit. So let's start off with a very odd story. I don't keep up with much sports anymore, except for football. When football season comes around, I don't really care about all the OTAs and whatnot. But I was watching a baseball game the other day, just bored, sitting at home, working on my phone, like literally. And I caught on the, what is it called? The Chiron, the scroll, whatever, on, I think it was ESPN, that I hadn't heard this name in a while. And we're probably not going to hear this name ever again. And I don't really know how to pronounce this guy's name. He's a Dominican guy. His name is Wander Franco, spelled Wander, probably Wander or something like that. Crazy story. I remember the name when I saw it because he was a very young prospect in the Marlins organization. They actually signed him when he was 16 years old to a contract for $3.8 million. This is how good a baseball player this cat is. The story takes a very odd turn at that point. Well, a few years later, when he's 21 years old, he gets hooked up with a 14-year-old. This all happens in the Dominican Republic, mind you. His trial just ended actually earlier today, in which he was found guilty and sentenced to a 2-year suspended sentence in the Dominican Republic. They were seeking 5 years. So basically, if he abides by the terms of this suspended sentence, he will do no further jail time. Where the story gets a little odd to me and why it piqued my interest, besides the fact that it's another person who should get really up close and personal with the wood chipper on, how it works internally, because he's going to need a job in the future. Maybe he can learn how to repair them. And the only way, get a good look at a steak, something. There you go. He is accused, convicted now, I guess, of paying the mother of the 14-year-old 2 separate payments totaling $103,500 for the 14-year-old for access, if you will. This is a guy that when he was 21 years old, so 5 years after signing his $3.8 million, was such a valued prospect and was a is still a very, very good baseball player, was inked to a deal with the Marlins for 11 years. Marlins or Rays? I can't remember, and I didn't write it down. Who cares? 11 years, $182 million contract, and baseball contracts are guaranteed. So this cat was going to get $182 million minimum over the next 11 years. he paid $103,000 to the mother, which the mother got sentenced to 10 years in prison for trafficking her daughter. Seems a bit light. This cat paid $103,000 for this crime, I guess. By the way, Dominican Republic, 2-year suspended sentence for a guy paying $100,000 plus for to rape a 14-year-old. And the mother who trafficked the daughter only gets 10 years for receiving said payment and just unleashing her daughter to a wolf. Wander Franco was 21. The girl was 14 at the time. Don't have the girl's name. Not going to say the girl's name. Don't have the mom's name. Don't care. Maybe they look at it. I was thinking about this, and culturally, there are some differences between us and the Dominicans. There's some cultural differences between the United States and, say, I don't know, Pakistan and India. So had these folks concocted this plan of just, hey, 14-year-old, if you're the mom, you could say, hey, 14-year-old, you're going to marry this guy, and he's going to pay something called a dowry. Maybe it would have been okay, and he would still have a baseball career. He has a suspended sentence. He is on the do not sign list or whatever for Major League Baseball. So no, he is not playing Major League Baseball. He does not have a current visa because of his current situation with sex trafficking and rape and things of that nature. And under the current administration, doesn't look like he's going to get a work visa. So therefore, he is not being paid the money that he signed for the contract. Even if somehow he is allowed to have a work visa in this country, they can still void the contract because of, rape. What kind of country are we living in nowadays that this guy's not facing a... Anyway, so I thought that was a weird story. I thought that was even weirder than the Liver King situation, in which I guess he got arrested making threats towards Joe Rogan. If you're going to do PEDs, kids, do them in moderation. Probably don't eat all the liver as well. Maybe mix in some greens in there. Liver's probably good for your muscles, probably not good for the brain, apparently. Don't blame the steroids on that. Also wanted to talk about this. Well, I live in this, was born in Tulsa, live in the greater Tulsa area. I've done a podcast in the past on the old version of this show about Tulsa and its crime problem, which I do have to say has gotten under control now that they got rid of the DEI hire police chief that they had from out of state, who was political at best and playing the game. Now have a good police chief, and after those very, very high murder rates in 2021, 22, I believe, for 2024, the Tulsa Police Department had 100% homicide solve rate, and homicides were down somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. They went from 50 down to around 20, and they solved all of them. So kudos to them. But in lieu of that, over the weekend of the Juneteenth celebrations, which were held in downtown Tulsa in the Greenwood district, there was a shooting, which one person was killed. 7 others were wounded in that one shooting. In total, in the weekend, 19 were shot. Only 1 was killed. All happened within about a 3-mile square radius of each other. Some of them were linked together, which the police have confirmed, but they haven't confirmed which ones were actually linked together. That's not really the story. The reason that I bring this up Yes, it was the person they arrested was a black 22-year-old male who shot and killed another black male. He also wounded a grandmother. The reason I bring this up and the reason I mentioned Greenwood and Juneteenth is because where this shooting occurred in the Greenwood district. You can look this up if you so choose. The Greenwood district is in a place which most of you might know as Black Wall Street, because you have been bombarded since St. George Floyd died of a drug overdose. You have been bombarded by Black Lives Matter and any sort of racial indiscretion that has happened upon any black person or persons in this country, which the Tulsa race riot happened at Black Wall Street in 1921, which they have now renamed to the Tulsa Race Massacre. And they have also spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 years looking for unmarked graves in old graveyards, which are still current funeral graveyards. They're looking for unmarked graves of what they call victims of the Tulsa race riot. And yes, I'm going to keep calling it the Tulsa race riot because that's what it was called for nearly 100 years. And I've been told that any sort of changing of history is a bad thing by certain folks. Revisionist history, as they'll call it. So we have to play this down the middle and keep it 1,000. That revisionist history cannot happen whatsoever. So the Greenwood district is a racist district, and it is not racist in the way that you have been told that racism exists in this country today. Here's how Greenwood is racist. There has been hundreds of millions of dollars invested, taxpayer dollars, mind you, Wall Street to revitalize the area, and the area has been revitalized. It is a very nice area. The Tulsa Drillers' new minor league baseball park, which is a Los Angeles Dodgers affiliate, minor league affiliate, is there. It is a beautiful baseball field, sits below ground level, so you have downtown Tulsa in the background. It's an absolutely fantastic place to see a baseball game. There are all sorts of brand new businesses. Downtown Tulsa has been revitalized, and Greenwood is it has not been left out. How it is racist is because of the color of my skin, I could not open a business in the actual Greenwood district. Not only can I not open a business, those who do open a business and are of the right racial persuasion get incentivized tax dollars and rent reductions because of that. So that's where Tulsa's at in its race reparations, which we just elected. I shouldn't say we because I don't live in Tulsa County or Tulsa proper, but the citizens of Tulsa just elected a new mayor, a man by the name of Monroe Nichols, who is a black man, which, whatever. He won fair and square over a liberal white woman. So far, Monroe Nichols is doing a very good job thus far. He's very he has talked about reparations for the Tulsa race riot victims, which I believe there is only one, maybe two left, most of which I think maybe there's three still left. They all were of under the age of 6 when these things happened. As bad as they were, I don't necessarily know that you're entitled to any dollars. The Supreme Court also has agreed with that. But he has pledged to do reparations, or at least find a way. He's at least backed it for the race riot, and he is also trying to drum up more funds for the Greenwood district in the sum of $105 million trust for the what's known as the Greenwood Trust. So there's that. My question, I should also add that when Trump visited Tulsa in 2020, he held a rally at the BOK Center, which is approximately, as the crow flies, 1 mile away. Very easy to make a pit stop there. He was not allowed. He was told he was not allowed to come to the Greenwood district to visit the memorial. And this was all, he actually, if I remember correctly, he actually delayed his rally one day because his rally was actually scheduled for the 19th of June. And the beloved folks, the woke folks of Tulsa, found this horribly inappropriate of the newfound date of Juneteenth, which was not a national holiday yet. And they did not want Trump to claim it as a national holiday because of, let's say, they were politically motivated at the very least. So that's where Greenwood and all of that is in regards to racial relations. My question, my bigger question, and I know this is very local to my area, but when are we done with this? The race riot happened in 1921, well over 100 years ago. The area is completely revitalized. If it were not for a mural that said Black Wall Street, no one outside of the area, and most folks who live in Tulsa and the surrounding area, have no idea where Black Wall Street is, however you want to refer to it. This also is a grave, horrific hate crime in the eyes of those same folks who hate Trump because he's white. Because they say no one's being taught this, even though I was taught this as a child in public school. Never forget. Okay. But you can move on. I think we can move on. I think it's okay. The fact that there's 3 people who were there when it happened, who are very old, like 90s and 100 years old. Well, they're all 100 now, because there you go. I mean, can we move on? What I keep asking this to folks who I see pop up either online or chat boards or in person, who say that something is owed. It's like, when is the check over? When can we stop writing checks? When is the Greenwood community and the larger Black community of Tulsa as a whole, when do they have their agency back, that the taxpayer who was born or moved into Tulsa County or Tulsa City itself, when are they off the hook for whatever this is? These are long form reparations. When is it over? When do you get to stop? Is it ever? Or do we just have to keep going down this race train until, I don't know. I just get so sick of it. It's insane to me that we keep going down this whole thing of, we're never going to be made whole again. And I'm not sure how you were ever in the negative when you didn't exist, your parents didn't exist, and possibly your grandparents didn't exist when this all happened. So that's I don't know. It all plays well into the whole St. George Floyd thing, I guess, of, Minneapolis has been ruined based on that. I guess at least Tulsa hasn't been ruined yet. At least there's at least fighting to keep control of it. It looked pretty touch and go there in 21 and 22, crime-wise, but at least we're back from that. So off of the local politics, I came across this video earlier today that I would like to play. one of my, I think I'm a mutual with Pop Tart, but one of the mutuals shared this and it got a lot of comments. Let me just play the video and we'll go from there. Give me a second here. Share the screen. And this girl's going to yell for a minute, so bear with it, but try to pay attention.
Why the fuck does a job that pays $16.50 need to have a second round of interviews? This is a receptionist job. I'm 21 years old. I've had five prior work experiences. Just hire me.
Okay, so you could probably imagine where some of the ire came from on that video, but I it's bad messaging, but I agree with her. How many of you out there have been through the multiple layers of interviews for a entry level or nothing job? Why is that the thing? I mean, I'm well on record as hating HR departments, and I kind of blame them for many of the woes, and I'll blame HR departments right now for that. But she has a point. It's an entry level job, answering phones and possibly greeting customers, but that's hard to know. Why do you have to go through multiple interviews to get a receptionist job? Just tell her no, man. Or tell her yes. Or when you do the interview, it's like, oh, okay, so we're interviewing X amount of people, or we're doing 2 days worth of interviews. We have your resume, we have your contact info. Can you verify that your contact info is correct? That way, when we get in touch with you, if you're the way that we go, we will contact you. Don't contact us, blah, blah, blah. There's any number of ways to do this. Why are we going through multiple layers of interviews is part A of this. But part B of this is, if you go and look through so many of those comments, and I guess I could share that. Hey, be a good host, be a good producer. Yeah, so let me share the screen again. Share screen. And so, as you scroll down, you see Sweetest Pie puts up 5. Okay, that's pretty funny. She threw up like 8 hands. Okay, thread is full of boomers. I have an idea. Yeah, that's true. 5 jobs at 21, going for a 6. No loyalty. I haven't even had 5 jobs in my life, and I'm more than double her age. Great. We're not going to lie, it up 8,000 square feet. Okay, that's pretty good too. Okay, so we're just looking there. It's pretty funny. Okay. Okay, so some of these are really mean, but welcome to the internet. The sign her up. That's the energy I want for my customers. No one wants an obese, unkempt receptionist, especially the one's kind of unhinged. Why is she already got 5 jobs? Blah blah blah. Okay, so Bob White Quail, Fudge Whale, whatever your name is, Sandy. It's not that you guys are necessarily wrong. It's that why can't the company tell her that? Hey, we're going to go in a different direction. Hey, you don't meet the qualifications. Hey, this, that, or the other. Or the stop sharing that shit. The boomers that want to say, oh, I've had 5 jobs my entire life and I'm like 100 years old. Great, boomers. You also run the country. So there's that. Face up to that, and then maybe we can talk. There's also the fact that if you can show me somebody who's under the age of 50, who's been at the same job since they were, say, 18, 20, 21, somewhere in there, and is with the same company or has retired from the same company, and it's not a government position like a cop, a firefighter, military, things of that nature. Show me the guy or girl who's worked for the same private company for 20, 30, 40 years or retired from it. Show me that person. that went to one job when they were 18, stuck through it, and or didn't get fired or laid off or furloughed, or the company move out of country or state or wherever, or get bought, or things of that nature. Show me that person. Now, you probably can show me a person. You can't show me 100 people. So she's not the anomaly here. And anyone, like the first comment there, said, I haven't had 5 jobs and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, maybe you're unemployed living off the government. There's also that part. And you're also just some rando on the internet. So I guess if we just take you at your word, maybe you did start a job when you were 20, 22, or whatever, and have been at it the whole time. Understand you're the anomaly here. And also, it was a different time when you started that job, most likely. So also, again, it's a receptionist job. Yeah, she probably is the wrong person for the job. Tell her that. Don't call her and be like, oh, we need to do a second interview. With who? Why? And then the one comment would have said, okay, well, I've been around the block enough to know that the second interview means you got the job. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. If you got the job, they would call you and say, hey, you got the job. You start this date. Bring this, this, and this with you. Here's our dress code, blah, blah, blah. Or we're going to onboard you. Come in this day so we can go through the paperwork. This, and this. Bring these things with you. We'll have an employee handbook because HR is ruining your life and my life. And they seem really happy about it. I'm just at a loss. I've had a bunch of jobs. You know, sometimes you start a job at a place where you think, you know what, this is going to work out. All the things on paper look great. This company's been around a long time. They have good benefits. They have a retirement program. Hours seem good. I can do the work. And you hate it. You hate it. You don't want to be there. So now I just have to stay there because some fucking boomer tells me I have to stay there, or I'm a bad person because I have more than one job. What the hell is that? Aren't I also supposed to know my worth? Which is it? You know, and then there's also this other part of the same people who talk about, oh, I haven't had 5 jobs my entire life and I'm 400 years old. You guys are part of the reason that a lot of people had to get other jobs because housing crises, your voting patterns who keep putting the same idiots in power who then pass budgets that cripple us and also vote for wars that cripple us either through literal means or non-literal means of we're spending all this money overseas on a forever war for nothing, for no reason, because let's recount why we had to do those wars for 20 years. What was it? Because you can fight them there, so you don't have to fight them here. If we don't overthrow them now, they're going to something, weapons of mass destruction, dirty bombs. Let's see, what else was there? Sleeper cells, Taliban bad. We didn't get Osama. Technically, we let him go. Oh, Gaddafi did something. Oh, you know what Gaddafi did? He disarmed his nuclear weapons. I really didn't plan on talking about Iran tonight, but it's just kind of in the ether, and I can't not talk about it now because so much of this complaining about the generation now or the generation that's coming or the generations that came before you, boomers, is your fault. 1, because you raised one of those generations, and 2, because you never ever saw a handout you didn't want. And you never, ever saw a war that didn't look good, that we shouldn't fight in, except the one you should have fought in called Vietnam. Interesting how that works. So, and I know a lot of boomers did fight in Vietnam. And God love you, because, man, but I'm not going to get sidetracked on Vietnam. That's a topic for a later date. But you complain about all of these things which you caused, and you're still complaining about all of these things in which you're going to ruin yet again. And like I said, you're using the same talking points, and I get so sick of hearing the same talking points voiced now about Iran. I've been on record enough about my dislike of the Iranian regime, but at a certain point, you have to face the facts that if you were for blowing up Iran, joining Israel in their crusade against Iran, you got duped. And the Iranian response tells you so. Because if you're Iran, okay, let's go back. I digress. Let's go back, I don't know, a week, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. Do you remember the lead up to this whole thing, and if the United States should get involved, and why the whole reason why Israel was bombing Iran was this is a fundamentalist regime in Iran who's hell-bent on getting a nuclear weapon, using it on Israel. They're suicidal. They love martyrs. They don't care. They just want Israel wiped off the map. And they're willing to do anything to do it, and they cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Okay? Fair enough. They gave up. Their retaliations on the United States after we bombed them, they made a phone call and said, hey, guys, would 1 p.m. be okay for us to fire these missiles at your base in Qatar? Is that okay? Is it also okay? We're going to fire off some stuff, to a base there in Iraq, and we want to make sure that you guys are aware of it. Is it okay if we do that? That's basically what Iran did in their retaliation for the American strikes. Now, they did strike Israel with legit bombs. Okay. If they're hell-bent, suicidal, fundamentalist regime, once it's on, right? And you don't give up. Because we're all just martyrs. If I'm a fundamentalist Muslim regime, we're all just going to be martyred, right? We'll fight to the last man. We'll draw swords. We're the Imperial Japanese circa 1945. Hell or high water, we're going out. We're bonsai charging your tanks, right? With a sword. Is anyone going to admit when that you were wrong? It's fine. I've been wrong before. It happened once. It's okay. You got duped. I tried to tell so many of you that you were being duped. And now there's some reporting, I use that term loosely, some allegations that we didn't do what we said we did, or excuse me, that we didn't destroy what we said we destroyed, or that the nuclear material wasn't inside the building that we decimated, basically, as far as we know, that they were able to get the material out or whatever. So basically, our mission may or may not have been a success. Could have been a failure. Don't know how we will ever know. That's also kind of was one of my points beforehand of how the hell would you ever know where any of these things are? All Wars Based on Deception. Anybody can buy that book and read it. So you got duped. again, you will not convince me that the Iranian regime does not possess the technical know-how, capability, or money, or all to acquire a nuclear weapon if they so chose to acquire a nuclear weapon. The JCPOA kept them at, I believe it's still 3% worth of enrichment, which allegedly they were abiding by all international agencies and anyone who could verify, which I know everyone will say, oh, well, how do you know? How could they verify this, that, or the other? I'll throw that same point right back at you, where they say, well, they've enriched it up to 60%. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. How could you possibly verify that? We're going into this blind. It's fog of war for a reason. It exists before and after. Okay. The one thing you have ensured here almost 100% through your actions, through our actions, our United States military and governmental actions in Libya and Iran now, overthrowing Gaddafi in the most horrific way possible, which we can debate that. Was that good, bad, indifferent, whatever? You've basically ensured, because when he disarmed, he got rid of any nuclear weapons or anything else, left the door open, front and back door open for Gaddafi to be regime changed, which happened. You're basically ensuring that the Iranians get a nuclear weapon at this point. They have every reason to get a nuclear weapon. And not only them, any other country that draws the ire of the United States probably should get a nuclear weapon. Right? I mean, why don't we regime change North Korea? Why don't we regime change any number of other places we don't like? If I'm the Iranians, I'm getting a nuclear weapon now, without a doubt. No, that's not true. I'm getting multiple nuclear weapons now, without a doubt. And I'm going to force the hand of the Israelis, whose side I'm on as an American, mind you. But if I'm speaking as if I was part of the Iranian regime and I'm trying to consolidate my power, I'm getting a nuclear weapon. I'm getting multiple nuclear weapons. And I am daring Israel to throw the first punch. I dare you to do it. Because now we're in the mutually assured destruction scenario. Mind you, for whatever reason, the Israelis have neither confirmed nor denied the existence of a nuclear weapon in their possession, even though pretty much everyone agrees that they do have a nuclear weapon, multiple nuclear weapons. That's always been an odd little fun fact to me. Although I do kind of understand, like, it's kind of like the way Trump plays things. You don't know if I will or if I won't. You don't know if I have it or I don't. It's kind of interesting. No judgment either way. It's a little peculiar, but I do kind of like it. But it is what it is. But the idea that we were going to be safer as a world post-bombing the Iranians versus not bombing the Iranians is just a farce. It's just untrue. Because like I said, if you're the regime in power, you're going to try to hang on because it's not going to end well. Even if your own people, even if we got everything we wanted and the Iranian people rose up and overthrew the mullahs and overthrew the current regime. Well, if you're the current regime, you don't want that. I don't think they're going to be nice to you. I don't know. But if I was a betting man, I would say it's going to end poorly for you. They're not going to exile you to an island where you're going to live forever or, until your last days. So, what was the point of this whole thing? Because I don't think we accomplished it. I think we made it worse. It would have been much better to stay in the JCPOA. It would have been much better, even after getting out of the JCPOA, to get a deal done basically no matter what. And you should have gotten the deal done before Syria fell, but we didn't. Is what it is. But therein lies another thing. And admittedly, I need to do much more research on this. But I do have a little bit of information. I am a little bit in the know. And I had myself reminded the other day watching one of Cappy Army's videos. Great channel, by the way. If you don't follow Cappy, follow him. Does great videos. Used to be at Task and Purpose, if you're not familiar. But one of his videos talked about the pipeline of weapons to Syria. Some of you will know where I'm going with this. Some of you don't. There's always been the question of, after Libya fell, why the hell were we even in Benghazi? Why did we have an ambassador there, an outpost, and any sort of official presence in Libya at all? Okay. The reason for that was basically to run cover for running Gaddafi's weapons out of Libya, basically through Egypt and Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, to the northeastern part of Syria. And I understand when people go, well, why would we go completely all the way around that way to run weapons? And why would we run weapons to Syria? One is, we're backing the overthrow of Assad, but why would we run all the way up to the northeast? Well, that's where the forces we were backing were. That's where they're stationed out of. That's where they had a stronghold. So that's why we ran weapons to them in the northeast. That's why we did that. And so it also kind of enlightens everyone as to why we had a presence, still have a presence, but also why we had a presence in Iraq for so long and why that was a thing. It's also why the Jordanians are pretty complacent in things going on. You know, when you start to wonder how Syria was overthrown, basically seemingly overnight, out of nowhere, a lot of weapons showed up. The Turks basically said, go, and that's what happened. And now Syria is a failed state, now being run by an Al-Qaeda guy, reformed Al-Qaeda guy. That's not a thing. I don't know. If you really want to be involved in the Middle East and you really want to have a problem with someone running a country, the Iranian regime sucks, sure. Would it be better off with a better benevolent leader? Sure. You should really have a problem with who's running Syria right now. You should really have a problem because our country, at least, was at war with Al-Qaeda for 20 years, which was also the reason we allegedly went into Iraq. Al-Qaeda and the Iranians did not get along at all. Oil and water. Shiite Sunnis don't get along. That's why Iran and Saudi Arabia don't get along. Sunni, Shiite. Doesn't work. Oil and water. Yet we're okay with an Al-Qaeda guy running Syria. We have a problem with another religious fanatic. Okay, so if we're going to say that the Iranians are religious fanatics and fundamentalists, well, what's a guy who takes up arms and leads a militia? We'll call it a militia, or at least leads an Al-Qaeda cell force in Iraq against American soldiers in Fallujah and Ramadi. Would you call that fundamentalist? Do you say he believes? Say what you want about the Ayatollah and the mullahs. I don't believe they've ever fired a rifle or led men into battle firing rifles at American soldiers. Hasn't happened, as far as I know. You notice the Iranians didn't get involved in Iraq until after we overthrew the Sunni leader, who was a minority leader in the country. And then all of a sudden, Iran is the biggest sponsor of terror in the Middle East. Okay. That's another topic that bothers me. If they're that well organized and that well funded, that they can control all of these proxies throughout the Middle East, supply them with weapons, tactics, training, money, do it all, right? They have that much of a network and web dedicated to supply all of this and to coordinate all of this, right? Okay. But they can't figure out how to make a nuclear weapon. They can't find a person or persons who can show them how to do it. They've had decades to do it. Decades. You know, let's play this out a little further too. One of the reasons I saw a post someone asked, which is a seemingly valid but also dumb question at the same time, of why hasn't Israel helped us in the Middle East, you know, boots on the ground, Afghanistan, Iraq, soldiers, IDF soldiers. Those of you in the know why that's kind of a dumb question. Obviously, when you're going in conquering Muslims and Arabs, or Muslims specifically, I should say, because Arabs can be Christians too, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them have died. Excuse me, especially recently, and in Syria. Funny how that works, huh? Still battling the COVID, guys. Where the hell was I? Oh, why the IDF is not standing shoulder to shoulder with us in the Middle East fighting against Muslims? Because we are operating on Muslim territories, and it is frowned upon in the Muslim world to stand with a Jew, which is, by all accounts, retarded. It is backwards thinking. It's asinine. It is one I literally cannot comprehend that thought process, but it is what it is. So that's why, especially like in the first Gulf War, Israel was not part of the defense or liberation of Kuwait. They were not part of the air sorties in Iraq, and they took some pretty tough Scud attacks in that war, and they did not retaliate. So that leads to the bigger issue here. If it is regime change you seek in Iran, there's no way to separate ourselves from our alliance with Israel at this point. We both attacked them same day, same time, you know, same bat channel. The idea that you're going to, with Israeli help, IDF, Air Force, that you're going to foment insurrection or regime change on the ground in Iran without IDF or American troops on the ground, and they're going to be pro-West, that's going to be a tough putt, guys. Because even though we here in America and the West more broadly have no problem with the Jewish people and the Jewish faith and the Jewish state, and again, being critical of anyone's government does not mean you hate the country or the people of said country. That's a tough putt, guys, because I cannot and we cannot assume that the Iranian people are friends of the Jewish people. They're a majority Muslim country. It's a huge country. It's news to Ted Cruz that there's 90 million people there. There might be a few less now, but we're not getting right down to brass, specific numbers. How's that going to work? Regime change. You're probably going to get someone way worse. I don't know, like a Jelani figure in Syria. And there are Christians in Iran, as far as I know, last I heard. You think they're going to pay a price? How do you think this goes if you overthrow them? There's the old saying, the devil you know. And this has been a talking point with Russia as well when people talk about we need to get rid of Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin's a gangster. But do you know what's behind him? That's the thing about the gangster types. When a gangster type is operating amongst gangsters, the most powerful one is the one who can keep the rest of them under control. The devil you know, guys. You've had 40 plus years to get a nuclear weapon if you're Iran, and you have yet to do it. The powers that be, the experts, the people in the know, will tell you that 60% enrichment of uranium is like right at the threshold. That's something like what Japan has done, and I believe South Korea has done, possibly Taiwan at this point. I mean, if you're Taiwan, you obviously got the semiconductors. But that's a threshold in which you enrich something to that you're basically right there at getting a bomb. It's just a matter of putting it together, from what I understand. I know obviously it's more than like assembling a damn puzzle or something, but you're right there. So I still struggle to understand exactly what the point of all of this was, what we were trying to accomplish exactly. Did we accomplish what we thought we were going to accomplish? I don't know why. I feel like I'm back during the COVID lockdown stuff once we were a few months in, and it was obvious that this thing was not as horrible as they were telling us, that it was affecting certain populations as far as age demographics, that even if you got it, the risk of you dying was really, really, really low. But basically that I felt like the only sane person, and I was struggling to find other sane people or people who could think, could think outside of what they were being told and fed, and do your own. I hate to say do your own research, but that's kind of what it is. Listen to different sources, find different sources. It's a trust but verify method, but verification doesn't come from someone who said a thing that you agree with. Listen to an opposing voice. One of the things I told a friend of mine when the whole Ukraine thing was kicking off, and I think it was prior to Putin actually invading, or maybe it was right as he did. It was right around that time. But if you were to go, and if you remember, COVID was still a big deal. If you were watching the corporate media, the CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, those guys, if you were watching them at the time, even just briefly, just tune in, see what they were talking about kind of method. They were polar opposites at that time, right before Ukraine. So this is what, 2021, 2022-ish. I forget exactly when. They were polar opposites on the COVID narrative at that point. So much had come out. Florida had done their thing. DeSantis was a star. All of these things, the data was in. Fox News was like, we got to open up. We got to be like Florida. We got to do these things. CNN was the complete opposite. They still had the death counter thing. Well, they might have taken it off at the time because now Biden was president. But they were second wave, third wave, fourth wave, booster, booster, booster. They were still all in it. Fauci was still a rock star in their minds. So they were polar opposites on the COVID narrative at that point. And then bang, Ukraine happens. And what happened? If you guys remember, even if you just touched on those channels at all, you didn't have to be an actual like avid viewer of them at all. And this is what led to Tucker's downfall, because he was the only voice. But all of those channels, when it came to Russia, Ukraine, locked right up. They were on the same message that Ukraine was the victim, Russia bad, Vladimir Putin, Hitler, all of these things. All of a sudden, they were on the same page. The narrative was the same. That's when you know you're getting screwed. That's when you know you're being lied to. When all of a sudden everybody comes together and they're agreeing on this one thing, and it's not something like a Pearl Harbor type scenario where it's like, or a 9/11 or anything like that, where it's like obvious. All of a sudden the narrative just boom shifts and they agree. That's when you need to at least take the step back and go, hold on, wait a minute, guys. We need to really, okay, we got to seek out some separate sources here. We've got to look deep into this thing. We need to figure out what's going on, because the fix is in. The big money fix is in, is what I've called it before. I don't know if that's true, but when all of those opposing forces come together and now are on the same narrative, that's when you have a problem. And that's exactly what happened with the Iran situation and Iran and nuclear weapons. And then boom, you see the polls come out, which those are the things too that really bother me, because if anyone on the right side, the quote, conservative right, which that's a hilarious term too in the wake of blowing people up, conservative. Yeah, you're conservative in name only, or in bio only, I should say. But that's the thing too. They come out, everybody's on the same page, and they'll come out with these polls to back up what they say, and they will skew the polls in a way, and it's not even skewing the numbers, it's skewing the question. So one of the polls I saw was like a CBS poll done by YouGov, whatever those sources are, take it for what it's worth. But the poll was, they broke it down into Democrat, Republican, blah, blah, blah. But the question was, should Iran have a nuclear weapon? Okay, that's easy. No, I don't think Iran should have a nuclear weapon. I actually say that. I don't think Iran should have a nuclear weapon. Most of you watching this probably say Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. I think we can all agree there, right? Okay, well, that's a much different question than should we go and blow them up? Right? Because once the bullets start flying or the bombs start dropping, things happen you cannot control. Iran showing the restraint that they held in making the phone calls. I say phone calls. They communicated somehow, if we're going to retaliate, is it okay, sir, if we fire at this time? Is that all right with you, sir? Great, sir. Thank you, sir. Same thing they did with Israel, by the way, with the drone things months ago. The restraint they showed, I mean, thank you. The restraint that Trump has shown after showing, some toughness, thank you, President Trump. I started this with that video of him saying they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and he could not have been more right. But if Iran had not shown restraint, again, the suicidal regime showed restraint. They made the phone calls. They told us what they were going to do. By the way, for all the money Qatar is supposedly paid to the Tucker Carlson types, Dave Smith types, all of the people who are saying the thing that no one wants to hear, saying the opposite of the mainstream media, including Fox News, for all the money that they supposedly paid to these guys on the behalf of Iran, so Iran doesn't get blown up, so they can continue to fund terror and be a proxy of Iran. Maybe, I'm not sure how that works, because it's all just accusations. There's no proof there. They did fire these missiles into Qatar. I don't know. Seems like something you wouldn't do. Would we fire missiles into Israel? I don't know. Seems odd. I don't know. Just a question, I guess. Oh, shit. I better not say that, because, just asking questions makes me, what am I? What did I get called today, Merc? I got called racist. I got called a Nazi, white supremacist, racist, white supremacist, something else. I'm not even sure why I got called that. Oh, because I questioned the legitimacy of some Iranian woman or something. I don't know. But if you just ask questions, that makes you racist. And anti-Semitic. It makes you anti-Semitic now too, which is odd. I don't know. Had Jewish friends. Oh, if that makes you racist to say you have a black friend, then saying you have Jewish friend or friends probably also makes you anti-Semitic or racist, possibly white supremacist. I don't know. I don't understand your stupid rules. And maybe that's like the woke left, woke right. The woke right thing is hilarious, but it could only go one way, because the folks on the right have no idea how to take a win. They only know how to infight when they hold any sort of power, which is crazy to me. I'm really getting sidetracked and deep into it now. For a guy who didn't have many topics when he started and was afraid that I couldn't talk for an hour, here we are. Let's try to keep going. I know it sounds like I'm some sort of Iranian apologist or something. I can't help but see the issues with things. I'll get back to the whole, when they line up, the corporate media lines up on the same talking point that is not clear as to why they're on the same talking point of a bigger picture, like a foreign policy thing, of a much bigger narrative kind of talking point. That's when you got to pump the brakes. When everybody lines up, pump the brakes. Now, if you're a Mark Levin fan and you find things he says to be wise, but you also find things he says to be don't agree there, do agree here. Okay, that's fine. That's a good way to think about things, because if you find yourself agreeing with someone 100%, you're the problem. If you agree with me 100%, that's a problem. I say some pretty dumb and crazy things. I've probably said a lot of them here in the last hour. Hopefully you find it somewhat entertaining. But I've been criticized for repeating things that Tucker Carlson has said, because Tucker Carlson did X, Y, or Z 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. much like a country in its leadership, I don't have to agree with everything. I can agree with some things and disagree with some other things and still have respect for that person or that country. You can take Israel as the prime example. I don't necessarily like the perpetual war they're fighting in Gaza and the human casualty, like innocent casualties that are piling up. That doesn't mean that Israel and its people should not exist. That's asinine to think that way. That doesn't mean I'm anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish, which is also a weird thing, which I mentioned last week, of the same people that will tell me if I don't back Israel's government 100% in their war in Gaza are the same people that will inform me that Israel is not an apartheid state because approximately 20% of their population are non-Jewish, Arab, and Muslim, and that there is Arab Muslim representation in their legislature, the Knesset. Hopefully I said that correctly. Also, I believe they have a Muslim Supreme Court justice. I assume they call them justices. Don't really know. Don't live in Israel. Know very little about their form of government. So, which is it? Does that also mean that I hate those Arabs? Does that also mean that they should get rid of those Arabs out of their country? No. But does that also mean that they should be completely still bombarding Gaza with bombs and things of that nature at this point? It's like, God, it's almost 2 years in, man. You haven't won yet? You know, and I take it with a grain of salt. And I don't believe all of the news reports that I hear that are negative on Israel's war in Gaza. A lot of it I don't even want to look into. I would just rather assume that the bad things are not happening. I also can't deny or avoid the stories of starvation in Gaza and the stories I hear about some IDF personnel, soldiers opening fire on humanitarian aid workers. I understand, much like broader picture, I understand that much like with a police force, there's bad cops, there's good cops. And the good outweighs the bad by a vast number. So I can say, I can at least quantify in my head, I can wrap my head around that they're just bad soldiers, or there are soldiers pushed to the brink who do really horrible things and really bad things to other humans. I can wrap my head around that and compartmentalize that from the broader IDF country and government. Okay. I have that ability, that mental ability to do that. Much like I can also say that although Hamas has a major presence, or had a major presence in Gaza and I believe the West Bank, but I'll stick to Gaza, that does not make every Palestinian in the Gaza Strip complicit in what Hamas does. We can separate those things out. Now, if you're Israel and the IDF and you're going into Gaza, how do you tell them apart? Fuck if I know. How did you tell the NBA from a regular Vietnamese? Don't know. Wasn't there. Not anything I can speak on. It's a tough job. Now, if you understand your tough job and you say, look, world, we were attacked, we were provoked, and now there is hell to pay, and we'll do our best to not kill innocents, but we cannot guarantee this. That's a different story than saying we are going to do everything we possibly can to not kill the civilian, and Hamas is going to lie about the civilian death toll, which they probably are. You got to pick one, guys. Pick which way you want to go. Now, there are the other insane types out there. I shouldn't say insane. I use that word. It's not such a pejorative so much as it is just a, I don't know, it's like calling something gay. Whatever. I am aware of Ian Carroll. He's, I would describe Ian Carroll as a nutter. Yeah, kind of a full-blown nutter. Maybe not full-blown, but he's pretty damn close. And I don't follow Ian Carroll. He's just too out there for me, man, and too incoherent. But I have seen some of his posts where he talks about, and the reason I look into him is because I want to see what he says without giving ratings or whatever, but see what he says when, you know, the average X poster hits him with something, you know, hits him with the little reply or quote tweet or whatever. And I saw one, he was being very critical of the IDF, and this has been a month or two ago. It said something about they're using snipers to take out, you know, humanitarian aid workers. The video's there. You can see the snipers. And the reason I jumped onto that thread to look is because that term, sniper, is such a like fucked out term, because I'm not a sniper, never claim to be, but I also know that the term sniper is not, sniping is something you do. Shooting is a part of it, but there are plenty of sharpshooters who are not trained snipers who are better shooters across multiple platforms than an actual trained sniper is. So it's kind of a fucked out term for someone who's really, Ian Carroll's an idiot when he talks about a sniper, because a sniper you'll never know really was there. It's one shot, one kill. It is stalking the prey. It's working in like a two-man team. There's any number of things that go into it. You're operating kind of on your own behind enemy lines, out in front of a larger force, going back to a base. So it's really just a fucked out term. Now, when you're in an urban environment, things change. You know, Chris Kyle was a trained sniper, Navy SEAL sniper. Being in a hide, shooting people down a road at, 80 to 100 yards is not what most of us would consider sniping. Sharpshooter could do that. But when you go into a hide and people don't know where you're at, that's more the art of sniping, okay? If in Ian Carroll's assessment these were really snipers, you wouldn't really know who was firing the shot. But based on what he claimed, he knew for a fact, because of the video, these were IDF's snipers. See kind of the problem you have with that when you understand the concept of sniping and what a sniper actually really is. Okay. That's the reason I jumped into his post and looked at the thread and looked at more of what he was talking about. And someone said someone replied to his post to the effect of, okay, well, what do you suggest Israel and the IDF do? That's a valid fucking question. And he agreed because he answered, and his answer was, it's simple. You go in with special forces and you just get the Hamas guys. Paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. I'll go out on a limb and assume that Ian Carroll never served in the military either, has never even read a book on any military, let alone a modern military. If we use our own United States military as a guide in this scenario, you can go back to Vietnam and the MACV-SOG guys, who were like the first legit behind enemy lines, elite warfighters, black ops, off the books, allegedly didn't exist. Their exploits, they were not allowed to talk about them for 20 years after the fact. You hear about MACV-SOG now, but no one heard of MACV-SOG until like the late 90s. And even then, it was just like, did this even exist? But the bigger point is, if you take our guys, even in the GWAT, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, the first guys that went in were elite operators, tier 1 operators, Delta. Didn't get bin Laden. Could they have? We can debate that till the cows come home. But they didn't. Also, I don't believe it was tier 1 operators, special ops guys who captured Saddam. I could be wrong on that. I think it was Army infantry. But Saddam was the beginning. Capturing Saddam was the beginning of Iraq. Once it really kicked off, when the power vacuum happened, and that's when everybody came in, that's when it got real spicy. Plenty of you guys out there can attest to that. Plenty of you guys went through it. I mean, you can read a book if you didn't go through it. You can talk to some of these fellas about what happened, what went on. But that's when stuff got real spicy. Okay, because all those towns we bypassed to decapitate, to get Baghdad, were full of Shia Muslims who were like, yeah, go get the Sunni. We're cool. You couldn't send in special operations at that point. That's what we had there. And if you remember, we didn't really regain back control of Iraq until the surge. The McCain surge, the Barack Obama surge of troops back into Iraq. That's when we got it back under control somewhat. Spilled a lot of blood to do it. I think we took Fallujah again. You can't do stuff like this with just special ops. Guys are going to go in and they're just going to grab Hamas. That's not how it works, bro. You're an idiot. Ian Carroll, you're a moron. Like, you don't have to have served to understand the force multiplier that a neighborhood is. You could just watch Black Hawk Down. It's okay to watch a movie and kind of understand how things get real spicy real quick. Things happen, people get hit, you go at the wrong time, plans get fucked, and then a helicopter gets shot down, and now we got a real problem. Okay, you don't have to have served to understand these things. So if your plan, Mr. Ian Retard Carroll, is to take IDF Special Forces, I'm sorry, I don't know your designations, guys. You probably keep it secret, which is smart. Is to go in with small IDF Special Operations Forces. How is that going to work, dude? What are you talking about? 8, 10-man teams? 4 to 8-man teams? 2 4-man teams? Total 8. How's that going to work? They're going to see you coming. They own the territory. They're there. Now, I understand that I just said that not all Palestinians are Hamas and not all Palestinians are pro-Hamas and work for Hamas, but a lot of them still do, or at least friendly. Here's the thing. If you're not going to come in and occupy and take over, they have to live with Hamas. What is their alternative at this point if you're a Palestinian who before this was neutral, just caught up in the nonsense? Think about if you were in a block in the 80s of mob-controlled territory and you knew the mob was there, but you're just a 18-year-old kid. Hell, let's take the gang violence we see in the black communities. It's the same parallel. Are you going to turn on the local gangbanger or mob boss to the cops? Where are you going to go? Do you not think there won't be retribution or reprisals? So if you're the IDF, if you're Israeli Special Forces, it's impossible to do that job and go get Hamas and get good intel. What you're going to get is fucking killed. What you're going to get is ambushed, Mr. Ian Carroll. I don't understand why this is hard to grasp. Like, you can sit there and wish the things you want because you don't like the death toll from the innocent children, civilians, and I understand that, but you can't, you have to provide the alternative. You can't be an idiot all the time. I mean, I guess it's working well for you. You ended up on the Joe Rogan podcast, probably not for that necessarily. But that's one of the worst takes I've ever seen is I wish, therefore it shall be. That's not how it works. So let's run down this scenario. Let's say, okay, I'm Israeli Special Forces commander, or I'm Mossad, and I'm coordinating with Israeli Special Forces Command. Okay. All right. Gaza is not very big. Still big enough. So we don't have a presence. If we're Israeli Special Forces Command, we don't have a presence, a base, an operating base in Gaza. Hell, let's say we do. Okay, so we're operating in Gaza. We've got a post. Okay. So we've staked out a position. It's fortified. It is what it is. Boom. We're legit. We are here. We're boots on the ground, right? We own this plot of land. Great. How do you leave? So we're going to launch a plane and we're going to leave. We all understand that if you're Hamas and you're dug in and you've been there for years, for decades, you're going to have someone on your payroll, on your like list, maybe somebody who just likes you because you took care of their family as a, they're a child, they're 9, they're 10, they're 12, they're 15, they're whatever. Somebody's going to alert you. So we've established a house. This is a Hamas safe house, right? Let's say, boom, we got them right there. Bang, this is the house. So we get kitted up. Man, let's say we even know the layout. We have the blueprints, and we know for a fact we have pictures that we were able to get off of satellite, that the building still looks the same, unmodified. Somebody was able to get into a building across the street. They took pictures. Everything looks legit. As far as we know, these blueprints are still cool. Maybe they've haven't even barricaded the door. It's still the same wood door. It's not a steel door, whatever. Let's say everything's on our side for raiding this place, right? Cool. Let's even say there's no tunnel under this building. So it's above ground. It's 2 stories. It's a flat roof. Let's even say it even has some space between structures around it. So you have the ability to pull in trucks, tanks, whatever, APCs. Let's say everything's on our side, right? Hell, let's say there's It's just space all around it. It's just a building by itself in the middle. Okay. Flat roof can support a helo. Let's say everything's on our side, right? How do you get from your base of operations to that building without anyone being alerted that you're coming? How? Anyone? It's impossible. So the idea of we're going to use special operations teams to go in and just weed out Hamas can't happen. Can't happen. Can't happen. Not without a massive death toll on the Israeli side. No one in their right mind, as an untrained, never served in the military guy, only read books, and not a lot of them. That's a suicide mission. And it's a suicide mission for low-level nothings. You could make that case if you're talking about a mastermind, a leadership structure, a what have you. You could make that case. Bin Laden raid, if that's legit, take it for what it's worth. Let's say the Bin Laden raid's legit. According to the old fire crotch, he thought he was dying, never coming back, but at least they were going to get the king and take him down who did 9/11. All right. Hey, let's assume you're telling the truth, Rob. Good on you, man. Better man than me, without a doubt. Many ways to one. Guys will sign up for that, but if you think they're signing up for some low-level peon and somebody just to clack off a vest the second they come through the front door or open up with a machine gun, why would you do it? Why would you as a commander even ask your guys to do it? You're going to expel, God, you're going to waste what? Let's say you're doing an 8-man team. You're willing to risk 8 dudes on someone who don't matter. 8 highly trained pipe-hitting dudes, plus the vehicles, all of it, on some dude who don't matter. No one does that. That's not how this works. Just if you just think for a little bit about how this might actually work, maybe if all this stuff you supposedly care about, Ian Carroll, I don't even know why I'm talking about Ian Carroll at this point, but here we fucking are, right? If you care so much about the well-being of the citizens of Gaza, the Palestinians that are remaining, what you should be advocating for, and I know this is hard to understand, what you should be advocating for is the IDF in all of the Israeli forces to go in and occupy Gaza. That at least gives an alternative to those who are non-sympathetic to Hamas. That gives them an alternative. That is also the thing that makes me really question the motivations of the current leadership of the Israeli government. Is you've given them zero choice of what to do if you're the average Palestinian living in Gaza. You have no choice. You can't go into Israel. You can't leave by boat. You can't go to Egypt. You can't get out. You're stuck. And you're starving by all accounts. What else would you do but join Hamas? Or at least be sympathetic? Can you not understand that? This is not hard to understand. I understand, guys. Yes, October 7th happened. It was a horrible thing. It happened. Not every Palestinian played a hand in, oh, but I see the videos of them dancing in the streets after October 7th. Perhaps that was a legitimate video of certain people celebrating that happened. Okay. Awful, awful stuff. Is it that much different from Nikki Haley signing bombs that got dropped on Gaza? If you're a Palestinian in Gaza and somehow you were able to see Nikki Haley doing that, are you not just as disgusted by that as we are by those celebrating the October 7th attack? Or are we kind of desensitized to that for some reason? Because we have these thoughts and pictures in our heads of World War II when soldiers were writing things on the bombs, or I'm sure a lot of you guys who fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other places, writing things on mortars. And I understand more the actual soldier, because it's more of a camaraderie thing, and it's a us versus them thing. Like, you're actually in the fight. That makes way more sense than a politician who's actually an out of work politician at the time signing that. So I just kind of at a loss to even think that a politician thought that was a good idea. Let alone a good idea for a photo op. I mean, it told us everything we needed to know about Nikki Haley. Just like seeing Ian Carroll's stupid tweet about using special forces tells you everything you need to know about Ian Carroll and his intelligence level. I mean, I don't know. It would be nice if everybody just stopped killing each other. You can make the case for taking out Hamas, obviously, and you can make the case for Israel taking out Hezbollah in Lebanon. I don't know how you make the case for the continuation without occupation in Gaza. I don't know how you make the case now with all we know after bombing Iran and their capitulation. I mean, almost immediately. And their, honestly, their good-hearted nature in showing restraint. Maybe not good-hearted, but at least their survival instinct is saying, "Oh, hey man, we're cool." I don't understand what is the outcome. I'll leave it at this. I'll end the episode. We'll land this plane like this. If you're for Israel and or the United States dismantling the nuclear weapons program of Iran through physical force or through military force, how exactly do you think that this ends? Do you think that this ends with a popular uprising with regime change? Or do you really think that this ends by Iran ultimately acquiring a nuclear weapon in order to preserve the regime? And with that, to those who are still watching after an hour and a half, I thank you all. And those who listen later, I thank you as well. And until next week, same time, check the Twitter for updates. If for some reason I have to postpone a little bit or cancel, I'll post it on my Twitter. You can follow me at Toxic American there on X/Twitter. But until next week, everybody have a good weekend. Try to stay cool because it's hotter than hell. And I thank you all for joining me.